Hello and welcome to tonight's video. I'm going to be doing another fanfiction reading today, and it's going to be of one of my favourite shippings. It's going to be an Octoscratch reading. This reading in particular is a very special reading because, well, it's my niece's birthday tomorrow and she has requested that I read her to sleep.
Hi.
And yeah, whether this will get her to sleep or not, I'm not sure. I was browsing through fiction and I just found this. This is With All My Heart, written by Serena. Chapter 1, Flatline. The machine connected to the pony in the hospital bed continues its constant beeping sound. The green lines on the heart monitor screen peaked and then descended time after time. Octavia turned her head away from the screen and looked around the room. Over the bland, off-white walls, colourful posters of bands and DJs had become the new wallpaper. Over the past few months, balloons, fresh bouquets of flowers and stuffed animals filled the left-hand side of the room. Some were from loyal fans, but most of it was from friends. How many months had she spent in this room? Octavia Melody shuffled her hooves against the cold white tile and looked towards the bed. The mare in the bed laid there, quiet, not moving except for the small rise and fall of her breathing chest. Her muzzle was covered with a plastic mask to regulate her breathing, as the IVs helped regulate the fluids in her body. Her electric blue mane was brushed straight down to touch her shoulders. Although Octavia made sure to brush it every morning, she could never get it the way Vinyl liked it. But it was better than looking like she had a bedhead every morning. Octavia looked at the picture frame on the side of the table beside her. It was of Vinyl, herself, and their friends. Lyra Heartstrings, Bon Bon or Sweetie Drops, Derpy, and Carrot Top. Each one came to visit at least once a week. They always brought something with them as well. Usually, Sweetie Drops brought Octavia goodies, such as cookies or a small baked pastry, as a snack whilst they all chatted. Octavia always gave them the latest news on Vinyl's condition. Most of the time there was nothing new to share, except this last time it was different. It seemed like hours sitting there in the room with Vinyl. Today, time seemed to pass by even slower. She heard the clack of hooves approach the room. A nurse knocked softly on the open door as she peeked around the corner. "Octavia, it's almost time." Octavia looked at Vinyl and then at the nurse. She nodded slowly and got up from her chair. "All right." Octavia followed the nurse down the hallway, her eyes to the ground. She thought back to how this had all started, the very beginning. It was a concert hall in Canterlot. All the fancy ponies had gathered to listen to an overpriced show her orchestra director had put together. She had just straightened her tie and set the cello in place when Octavia spotted her. How she stood out from the other ponies. Her electric blue mane and two-wear glasses indoors. The aristocrats would cringe at the thought. Octavia didn't though. No, she had found her utterly captivating. When she had played that night, she could barely feel her brow in her bow in her hooves. Her eyes were on that mare, the mare that stood out from the rest. After the concert, Octavia packed up her cello and was headed out the door when a figure caught her eyes. There was some pony waiting for her in the doorframe. The mare she had been watching all night had waited for her. Octavia was panicked. That is, until the mare extended a hoof. A white rose was presented to her. "Vinyl," she said. "My name is Vinyl." Their relationship had kicked off since that one evening. Turns out that Vinyl had been saving her bits to try and get into one of the fancy concert halls, just to try and get to talk with her. It was a cliche, especially the rose, but it was also romantic. Soon, simple hangouts turned into dates. In the past 2 years, they had moved in together. During all of this, Vinyl had introduced Octavia to her friends from Ponyville. She remembers being nearly suffocated to death with hugs, but it was a heartwarming memory. She should have noticed something was wrong. The morning she walked into their apartment to see Vinyl collapsed on the kitchen floor, her purple sunglasses shattered across the tile. Her world came crashing down that day. She called for an ambulance. Soon, red and white lights were outside. 2 stallions loaded Vinyl into the back of the cart. Octavia climbing into the back with one of them as the other galloped towards the hospital. The stallion had attached an IV to Vinyl's foreleg and placed a mask supplying oxygen over her muzzle. Octavia had sat there, brushing Vinyl's mane, tears pouring down the grey mare's cheek. As the cart slowed to a stop, the doors swung open. 2 ponies quickly got Vinyl off the cart and rushed her into the hospital. Octavia galloped after them, only to be stopped by a large pony in a white coat. She tried to push the pony out of the way as she began to lose sight of Vinyl.
"Let me go. I need to be with her."
The stallion held Octavia in place.
"Madam, I'm going to have to ask you to stay in the waiting room and let the doctors do their jobs. Do you understand?"
Octavia looked down the hallway. Vinyl had disappeared into one of the rooms. She sniffled and nodded. The stallion led Octavia to the waiting room, where he offered her a tissue.
"I assure you, Miss
Octavia."
The stallion nodded.
Well, Miss Octavia, we will keep you updated on your friend's condition. That is, when we learn of the details."
Octavia nodded and blew her nose into the tissue.
"Thank you."
The stallion nodded and trotted out of the waiting room. Octavia stared at the clock. 1 hour ticked by. 2, 3. No word had come of Vinyl's condition. She had gotten up to ask the nurses, but they just shook their heads, saying they didn't know anything yet. So she sat there, waiting, trying her desperately hardest not to worry, assuring herself everything would be fine. Why didn't she admit the truth? Why didn't she admit to herself that everything felt like it was not going to be okay? Octavia began to pace around the room. A pony she hadn't seen before approached her.
"Octavia?"
She nearly jumped at the sound of her own name.
"Yes?"
The nurse cleared her throat.
"Come with me."
Octavia trotted beside the pony.
"How is Vinyl? Is she okay?"
The mare turned towards her. Her eyes weighed heavy on Octavia.
"We tried our best to help Vinyl's condition, but unfortunately it will take a while to correct. You see, Octavia, it's her heart."
Octavia felt a pit grow in her stomach.
But she'll be okay, right?"
The nurse sighed.
"We can keep her alive for now, but there is no guarantee of the future if the procedures we've suggested don't work."
She laid her hoof on Octavia's shoulder.
"We'll have to keep her asleep to prevent her heart from overworking."
Octavia felt herself begin to shake.
Asleep?"
The mare nodded.
"Yes, she's awake for now. She asked for you."
Octavia nodded, slowly, and they continued down the hallway until they reached one of the last doors on the left side of the hallway. The nurse opened the door and nodded to Octavia. Octavia trotted into the off-white room. Octavia could hear a soft beeping from the corner next to the hospital bed.
"Octi?"
Her head turned to look at the bedridden Vinyl in the eyes. Her usual bright red eyes seemed glazed over. Her spiky electric blue mane laid flat against her back. Octavia trotted up beside the hospital bed and placed a hoof over Vinyl's. How are you doing? No. How are you doing? Vinyl smiled weakly and tightened her hoof around Octavia's. Yeah. Oh, wait, no, I've got that wrong. I apologise. How are you doing? Vinyl smiled weakly and tightened her hoof around Octavia's. Oh, wait, no, I had it right. Vinyl smiled weakly and tightened her hoof around Octavia's. I'm feeling just fine. No. Oh, God. Why is it this bit? I apologise, guys. I haven't slept in a while and it's just getting to me. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. Take number 3. Third time's the charm.
Uh-huh.
I'm feeling just fine. I'm sorry, Octi. Octavia shook her head. You have no reason to be. The DJ looked down and sniffled. Yes, I do. I didn't tell you. Octavia shook her head. I don't understand, Vinyl. The mayor looked up at Octavia with teary eyes. My heart. I should have told you sooner. Vinyl tried to sit up the best she could. Octi, I'm dying. Octavia felt fresh tears spill down her cheeks. No, don't you dare say that. The doctor said that. Vinyl shook her head. Octi, they said that when I was a filly too. They didn't think I'd make it this long. The cellist shook her head. You could still make it though. Vinyl turned her head to look at her mare friend, the mare whom she had spent so much of her time with. No, Octi, not this time. Please don't cry. Vinyl lifted her hoof to Octavia's cheeks. It shook as it brushed away a tear. Please? Octavia sniffled and rubbed her face with her foreleg. All right. There was a soft tapping on the door. Octavia turned to see the nurse standing in the doorway. She needs to rest. Oh, wait, no. She needs to rest, Miss Octavia. The mare sniffled and held Vinyl's hoof tight. All right. She turned to her mare friend. I'll always be with you, okay? Vinyl nodded as she closed her eyes. Wouldn't have it any other way. Octavia let go of Vinyl's hoof. She felt as if she was dragging herself to the door. The nurse laid a hoof on her shoulder. We'll take good care of her. I promise you. Octavia nodded and walked out the door, her purple eyes looking to the tiled floor. She mumbled, Probably better than I ever could. It seemed like the same hallway as the one leading to Vinyl's room that day, but she knew this one was different. She wasn't sure exactly where she was going, only that she was supposed to follow the nurse in front of her. She was brought to a large door made of some kind of metal. The nurse tapped on the door, and it opened. An older stallion was standing inside, in a long white coat. Good afternoon, Miss Octavia. I've heard so much about you. Now, if you'll come with me, I'll run you through the procedures. I know this must be terribly hard for you. Octavia looked back down the long hallway. She no longer could see Vinyl's room, but the thought remained. The thought of how Vinyl would hate to know she would have to lie in a bed asleep while life continued around her. She turned to the doctor. It's easier than you think. Octavia walked inside the room, and the metal door shut with a click. That was With All My Heart, Chapter 1, Flatline. Written by Serena and read to you by Crimson Shade.
Shall we do chapter 2?
Maybe.
Maybe on another video.
Yeah.
Sayonara.
Right. Now, I just want to say a few words about this fiction. I might have said it before at the beginning of the video, I can't remember, but wow. Octoscratch. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite shippings,
Yeah, but it's from My Little Pony.
and a shipping like this is good because these characters are down to the fans' perceptions. And then you've got people that write amazing fan fictions like this, and it touches your heart. To those of you that enjoy reading stories like this, I really suggest you give FimFiction a look. No, this is not a paid sponsor or nothing. I'm just suggesting a good My Little Pony fanfiction site, so sue me if you wanna. I don't care. Anyway, with that being said, I bid you all adieu. Have a good day, night,
Subscribe.
whenever you listen to this. Just have a good one, okay?
Like and subscribe.
In a bit, until the next video.
And like and subscribe.